Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for May 2nd, 2018. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the latest film and TV news. This is Slash Film senior editor Ben Pearson, and joining me today are writers Hoai-Tran
Hey everyone.
and Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
All right, guys, let's jump right into the news today. There's actually a news item that happened, the story that broke a couple days ago that we haven't had a chance to talk about because we've been mostly talking about Avengers Infinity War on recent episodes of the podcast. But this one sounds pretty awesome. And Chris, I wonder if you could walk us through that for me.
So John Woo, famous action director, he directed Face Off and several other films, is remaking his film The Killer, and he's remaking it with Lupita Nyong'o in the lead, which is a big departure from the original, which had a male lead played by Chow Yun-fat. The original film is about a assassin who accidentally blinds a woman, and he feels guilty about what he's done, so he tries to atone for that. So this is very exciting because I love John Woo, I love Lupita Nyong'o, I love all this stuff. I love the original Killer, and while I'm not exactly huge on remakes, the fact that it's John Woo remaking it himself and he's switching the gender of the lead, it just sounds very cool and a very interesting way to approach this material.
Yes, I agree. HT, have you seen The Killer, the 1988 John Woo movie?
So I actually haven't seen The Killer, but I'm still excited for this movie regardless because the movies I have seen of John Woo, I'm a huge fan of, and I'm really excited to see Lupita Nyong'o finally take on a few lead roles or be offered some more lead roles because after she won the Oscar for 12 Years a Slave, she kind of disappeared for a little bit, and now we're kind of seeing her come back in full force with Black Panther, now The Killer, and then there's another spy film with a whole cast of women that we were talking about that came out yesterday. The news came out yesterday, so I'm very excited for just Lupita Nyong'o's star to rise.
Yes, I think that spy film you're referring to is called 355. So I'll link to that right up in the show notes as well. But yeah, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to this particular news story because I really love the original Killer, and I think that and Hard Boiled are like the two big John Woo movies. And if anybody has not seen those films, you don't have to like dive deep into a filmography. You can really just watch those two movies and get a really great sense of what the heyday of John Woo movies were like. And the notion of Lupita Nyong'o taking on this lead role is very fascinating. The gender swapped angle is interesting, and yeah, like Chris said, Woo coming back to direct it. He hasn't directed anything that people, this may sound mean to say, that people have really enjoyed for a while. Chris, I think you were telling us that you saw one of his more recent movies, right?
He has a new film called Manhunt, which is debuting on Netflix this Friday, and I saw it at TIFF last year, and it's all right. It's definitely not one of his best films. I mean, if you like John Woo, it's a fun film to watch because it has a lot of his trademarks with the slow motion and the doves and all that stuff, but it wouldn't be my first recommendation for someone to watch a John Woo film.
Right. Yeah, that would definitely be The Killer for me, so go check that out if you haven't seen it. Let's move on to our next story, and that is MoviePass. We've been talking a lot about MoviePass really for like months on end, it seems like, and one of the recent conversations we had was about how the subscription service company has basically HT, why don't you just run through it for us?
So a few weeks ago, MoviePass, there were reports that MoviePass was rolling out its popular one movie a day monthly plan because it was offering a new promotional plan, which was a 3-month plan for about $29.95, and it would only allow subscribers to see 4 movies a month, although they would get a complimentary free trial of iHeartRadio's All Access on-demand streaming package.
Yay.
For all of those iHeartRadio fans. So this stirred up quite a bit of controversy because a lot of the reasons that people signed up for MoviePass was because of this possibly great deal of one movie a day for $9.95 a month, and rolling that out was caused a bit of an uproar amongst subscribers. So a few weeks later, it seems that MoviePass is dropping that $29.95 promotional deal and reverting back to the one movie a day plan for $10 a month.
Yeah, so I think what happened was the new plan was basically just for new subscribers, and people who were already subscribed to MoviePass, it didn't really affect them. But we were talking a lot on one of the recent episodes of the show about how taking away that one movie a day option just sort of it removed a lot of the glitz and glamour of MoviePass. That was like a big reason that people were interested in the service in the first place. And it's weird because in this news story that you wrote up, it quotes Mitch Lowe, who's the CEO of MoviePass, and he basically is like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we were always gonna bring it back. Like it's no big deal. But like he's the one who started the whole conversation that we had just a few days ago, because he was like, I don't know, it might not come back. So like,
yeah, this whole thing sort of reeks of backtracking, just because it was so wildly unpopular, and like back when they first instituted this new promotional plan, like you said, he was like, I don't know if we'll bring back the $9.95 one movie a day plan. So it kind of adds fuel to the fire of MoviePass not really going forward with a big master plan. The service kind of wings it as it goes along. And this isn't the first promotional plan that MoviePass has had. They offered for a short amount of time the annual plan, which was the equivalent of $6.95 a month. And those were for some short promotional periods as well for new subscribers only. So this was definitely something that it might have been temporary, and we don't really know. But first, the way that Mitch Lowe spoke about it made it seem like it was something that they were considering to put into full effect.
Yeah, it strikes me as just a ploy for more headlines, and I'm mad that we have given it the time that we've given it, because it seems like we're playing right into their hands. But
we are the MoviePass blog, after all.
All right, so let's move on to our next item, and that is John Boyega has teased a time jump that might happen between the events of Star Wars The Last Jedi and Star Wars Episode 9. We know that J.J. Abrams is coming back to direct Episode 9, and in an interview with UK Finance, John Boyega recently said, I can't wait to start shooting the next and final leg of the franchise. The first step is growing out my hair, so you can wait for the trailer to see why. So the idea of him calling this the final leg of the franchise, I don't think is accurate. I think Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm, has previously said, quote, we're looking at narratively where that might go, future stories beyond Episode 9 with these new characters, Rey, Poe, Finn, and BB-8. So I think there's probably larger machinations going on at Lucasfilm in order to bring these characters back. But the thing that sort of struck me about John Boyega's comment here was the idea of him growing out his hair. And that, I mean, we're at this point, Star Wars Episode 9 doesn't come out until December 20th, 2019, so we're almost as far away from that as we can be in terms of like being in between numbered Star Wars sequels. So we're desperate for any details we can get about this movie, and if we have to parse through the idea of John Boyega growing out his hair to play Finn and what that might mean, that's where we are right now. So the idea that he will grow out his hair basically implies that there's going to be a time jump between those two movies. We know that The Force Awakens ended and The Last Jedi essentially picked up right where that movie left off, and it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case this time. If he's got longer hair, we can presume that months, maybe even a year or something has passed in between films, which sort of takes things back to the more traditional original series, original trilogy vibe in terms of the time that took place in between movies. So I just thought it was sort of an interesting thing. You can read a little bit more about that in the piece. Do you guys have any thoughts about Star Wars Episode 9 at this point? I know, like I said, we don't really know much about the movie at all, but does a time jump, does that sound like something you would want to see, Chris?
I mean, I don't know if it's something I want to see, but I think it does make sense because the way the Force Awakens ended, there was really nowhere the next film could have gone except to, immediately following that final moment where, Rey holds out the lightsaber. But the way The Last Jedi ends with, everyone sort of coming back together and, jetting off into space. And it makes sense to jump forward a little bit, especially because, Carrie Fisher has died since then. So it'd be kind of impossible for the film to pick up immediately after The Last Jedi ends because she's still alive at the end. Her character is still alive at the end of Last Jedi. So I think maybe that explains why they're jumping ahead a little bit, because they have to have that sort of time jump to say, Leia has died since the last film. Right. Not to bring everyone down or anything.
HT, what about you? You have any thoughts about this?
No, yeah, I think it makes sense too, because the resistance is depleted, so they need to bring it to a new era and build up their numbers. And we also have the implication of Broom Boy and everyone, so
Oh,
maybe we'll
yes.
see a grown-up Broom Boy. Who knows? The Adventures of Broom Boy.
Yes, you got to give
I'm
Broom
just
Boy
hoping that
time
John.
time to go through puberty.
Yes, exactly. I'm just hoping that John Boyega, by saying he's growing out his hair, has like long flowing locks or something.
Yeah, dramatic growth would be an interesting turn. Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about what the hell is going on with Deadpool 3? I know Deadpool 2 has not even come out yet, but you wrote an article earlier today talking about the enigma that is Deadpool 3.
Yes, so Ryan Reynolds, he's already doing some Deadpool 2 promotion in Korea right now. And he did this video interview in Korea, and it's about like it's a 40-minute long video, and I watched the whole thing, so please have sympathy for me to find this quote. And so what he said was, he said, this is a direct quote. It's an odd thing to say, but I don't think there will be a Deadpool 3. I think going forward, it will be an X-Force movie, which would be his team, so to speak. And I was really taken. I think we all were a little taken back by this in the Slash Film Slack, because it just seemed sort of inevitable that a Deadpool 3 would happen. And so, when I was writing up the story, I did some digging, and it seems like no one really knows what's going on here. I mean, back before Deadpool 2 was even finished filming, a story broke saying Deadpool 3 would introduce the X-Force. But as we all know now from the trailers of Deadpool 2, Deadpool 2 is the film that introduces the X-Force. So I'm not really sure what's going on here. And, from a personal standpoint, I really don't think Fox would just give up on Deadpool. That's too profitable a name. So, even though I doubt Ryan Reynolds is making this up, he clearly would have some sort of inside info. I think no matter what happens, the next film is definitely going to have Deadpool in the title, because it would just be silly for Fox to just give up on that brand recognition.
Right, yeah. Even if the X-Force are a major part of Deadpool 2, I can't imagine they would just drop the word Deadpool from the title, because general audiences aren't going to know that. Not everybody is going to go see Deadpool 2, although that movie is probably going to make a ton of money this summer when it comes out. One of the interesting things that you mentioned just now and that you found in this piece was you talked about Ryan Reynolds probably knowing a little bit about what he's talking about. He's been a key creative force in bringing Deadpool to life. But one of the other people that is involved in these movies is Rhett Reese, who's one of the writers on the original film, and I think he wrote or co-wrote the second film as well, if I'm not mistaken. What did he say about Deadpool 3? And this was like a little while ago, right?
Yeah, so he has a bit of a longer quote, so I won't read the whole quote, but basically what he said was there are two different movies being developed right now. One is Deadpool 3, and one is a straight-up X-Force movie. So, like you said, Ben, that quote was a little while ago, so maybe since then they've decided to combine them into one movie. I really don't know. It just seems, at the very least, it seems like Fox is kicking around a bunch of ideas, and they haven't quite landed on one they want to do yet. But I'm almost positive after Deadpool 2's opening weekend numbers come in, we'll hear that Fox has officially greenlit Deadpool 3. It just seems impossible for that to not happen.
So, HT, I think you probably like the original Deadpool a little bit more than either Chris or I, but do you want to see a Deadpool 3, or would you rather just see them roll it into an X-Force solo movie and sort of kickstart that separate franchise? What do you want to see happen here?
I don't know if I have much of a better opinion of Deadpool than the both of you. I'm kind of just middling on it, but
Okay, all right.
I don't know. It depends on the X-Force that we see in Deadpool 2. I feel like I have yet to see whether they can hold the movie on their own, although I like what I've seen in the trailer so far, especially of, what's his name? Peter? Yes. The scene-stealing Peter, my favorite. So I don't know. I do think that they probably have some problem with like the brand recognition, but people will go see most superhero movies these days, regardless of whether there's brand recognition or not.
Yeah, and I think Drew Goddard, who wrote, he directed Cloverfield. I think he directed, or wait, was that Matt Reeves? Now I'm forgetting. Drew Goddard, I think he wrote and directed The Cabin in the Woods. He is supposed to be directing the X-Force solo movie, whenever that is. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. I for one enjoyed Chris's suggestion earlier that Deadpool 2 is going to kill off all of the X-Force members that they immediately introduce in this movie, like MacGruber style. I think that would be kind of hilarious, but then it'll be up to Drew Goddard to come up with an entirely new X-Force team for his solo film. So I don't know if Fox would actually do that or not, but it would be hilarious and very appropriate for a Deadpool sequel to do something like that. HT, tell us a little bit about The Handmaid's Tale. There's a bit of news about the new Hulu series.
Yes, so The Handmaid's Tale Season 2 just premiered last week, and the numbers that are brought in were double the amount that the Season 1 premiere brought in, and which was great news for Hulu. Hulu met another milestone with 20 million subscribers this week as well. So on the aftermath of that, they recently renewed The Handmaid's Tale for Season 3.
So I have finally caught up on The Handmaid's Tale, and HT, I think you've probably seen, how many episodes of the second season have you seen already? Because I know you wrote a review already.
Yes, 6 episodes of Season 2 so far.
Okay, so how many episodes are in this season? Do you know?
I think there will be 10 episodes.
Okay.
I might be wrong.
Yeah, so I think I just wanted to get, I know, just in case for people who haven't read your review yet, and I'll link to it in the show notes so everybody can have a chance to check it out, but what did you think about, I guess trying to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, because I know Chris hasn't seen any of the show yet, but what did you think about the first couple episodes of Season 2? Personally, I found them to be sort of even more depressing than the first season. Yeah. What do you think?
They definitely double down on just like how bleak and abysmal the tone of Handmaid's Tale is. And while that's really difficult to watch, I do like how character driven and intimate the second season has been so far, in a way that it's less focused just on June. It kind of expands its scope to the other characters, which I really like, because June, while she's a really fascinating protagonist, being solely in her POV feels like it was kind of limiting the series, and now that we're finally expanding beyond that, I feel like the show is kind of finding its own identity beyond Margaret Atwood's book.
Yeah, and it sort of reminds me of Orange is the New Black in that way, where like the first season of that show was mostly about Piper, but it was sort of like a stealth introduction to what the show was really going to be about, which is expanding, like you said, the scope into all of these different characters that inhabit the prison, and it seems like a similar thing is happening with Handmaid's Tale. So yeah, I'm excited to see about what they do with Season 3, because the end of the first season is right there aligned with the end of Margaret Atwood's book, and there's nothing else there in terms of source material, so they're completely off the chain. They're like doing whatever they want now, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they strike out on their own and do their own thing. In terms of another TV show renewal, HBO has also renewed Westworld for Season 3, which is probably the least surprising news story that we had this week, because Westworld is obviously a very popular show. Everybody's talking about it all the time. Chris, you're actually writing weekly recaps for us. So they didn't really give us any details in terms of like how many episodes there were going to be, whether Jonah Nolan and Lisa Joy, the showrunners, are going to be coming back, although I'm sure they probably will. Chris, what did you think about Westworld getting a renewal? In terms of what you've seen so far from Season 2, is this an encouraging thing? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I really like the show. I liked the second season of what I've seen of it so far. I've seen the first 5 episodes more than the first season, so I'm definitely interested in them keeping it going. I do feel like sooner or later they're going to sort of run out of. There's only so much you can do with this premise. The original Westworld movie was literally about leading up to the big robot revolt, and then the robot revolt happened, and then the movie ended. I mean, the show, we're already at the big robot revolution. I don't really know how much more you can do with that. I mean, is like the third season going to be the robots are back to being docile again? You can't really do much with that.
Right.
So I do feel like I can't picture many more seasons of this, but I'll definitely watch Season 3.
Yeah, the second episode of Season 2 is called Reunion, the most recent episode that aired this past Sunday. was very disheartening to me because I just found it so repetitive, and like all the characters were just sort of roaming around and saying the same things to each other, and Ed Harris's Man in Black was just sort of spouting philosophical nonsense, and it just felt like the show was really spinning its wheels when it wasn't diving in and revealing some of the history of Delos. That stuff I found really interesting, but I think it's just Evan Rachel Wood's character. Like I appreciate the tremendous challenge that it must be for her to portray that role, because there's so much going on with that character. But it seems like in season 2, at least in these first 2 episodes, it's more like the show is excited about showing us Dolores being this revolting or revolutionary badass, and I'm already sort of bored with that notion. So the idea of Westworld already being renewed for season 3, like I said, it sort of feels inevitable, but I'm just hoping that the writers have something else up their sleeves in terms of where they can take that character, or just kill her off and make Maeve the main protagonist of the show, because I'm much more interested in what she's doing anyway. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I gotta say, so when I wrote the season review based on the first 5 episodes, I watched all 5 episodes back to back. You know, it probably like in 2 sittings. I binged them essentially, and I didn't notice any sort of tedium when I was watching it that way. I was really into it, and you know, now that I'm doing the weekly reviews as well, I'm going back and rewatching them one at a time. And I gotta say, you're right. The second episode, while it seemed fine in the middle of a binge, it does drag a little. So it's I don't know. I feel like this is a show that actually works better once it's all done. You can binge all the way through it than watching it episodically, which is unfortunate because this isn't a show like a Netflix series that gets dumped all at once. So, right. Yeah.
HT, are you planning on catching up with Westworld, or is that not really a priority for you right now?
I mean, I actually heard from others that season 2 is better than season 1, just because it doesn't focus so much on the puzzle box aspect of it. And while that may be like a big deciding factor for a lot of people who like the mystery, I actually think I am more interested in catching up to season 2, just because I don't really feel like a show that's actively trying to confound me every week. So right. Yeah, I think I'll try to catch up.
Yeah, let me know what you think when you do. So let's move on to our next item, and that is the Power Rangers brand has been acquired by Hasbro. So Hasbro, the toy company, has been making movies in Hollywood for about a decade now. The first Transformers came out in 2007, and they are forming what they're referring to as the Hasbro Cinematic Universe. And it seems like they've just acquired a new entry, a new player in that cinematic universe, in the Power Rangers. So we know that Saban, the company that owned the Power Rangers brand, and ever since it began with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers back in the early 90s, has sold everything, like the branding, the intellectual property, the movie rights, TV rights, toy rights, all that stuff, to Hasbro. And that probably means that we're going to be seeing another Power Rangers movie sometime soon. And I would guess that it's not a crazy thing to assume that the Power Rangers will probably be facing off against the Transformers, or Rom the Space Knight, or Mask, the mobile armored strike command team, which are some of these other projects that are in the works in the Hasbro Cinematic Universe. Chris, I know you recently saw the Power Rangers movie for the first time, the one that came out last year. After seeing that, and because I haven't seen that movie, admittedly, after seeing that and knowing about this acquisition, what do you think about the idea of seeing another Power Rangers movie, potentially with the characters facing off against some of those other familiar properties?
I don't want it. I admit that I liked the new Power Rangers movie much more than I thought it would. It was an entertaining film, and Elizabeth Banks is very good in it, in the sense that she's just completely over the top and they let her do whatever she wants. But I'm really not eager for Power Rangers versus Transformers or any of that stuff. Just please, I don't want that. Don't stop now.
But Chris, what if Elizabeth Banks as Rita Repulsa is riding around on the back of a Decepticon? Does that not sound appealing to you?
Maybe I'll see that. I guess it depends. I'll have to wait for the trailer.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to our last, I believe, our last topic of the day, and that is the Ant-Man and the Wasp trailer. I think this came out yesterday morning, and we had already banked an episode of Slash Film Daily, so we didn't get a chance to talk about it. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think about this. HT, did you get a chance to check out this trailer?
I did. I liked it a lot, actually. I liked it more than than the past Ant-Man and the Wasp trailer, just because I felt like it really leaned into the gimmicks that made Ant-Man so fun. And we did get to see Evangeline Lilly's character speak, so that was exciting. There was more Michael Pena, which is always a good sign. And there was, of course, that scene of the ant drumming, which was just like the proper amount of ridiculous, borderline cartoonish fun that I needed a Marvel movie that's not Infinity War.
Chris, what did you think about this trailer?
This looks really good. I don't hate the first Ant-Man. I just think it's an okay movie, and I'd probably never even really want to rewatch it ever. But this looks better in almost every single way. It looks funnier. It looks better directed, even though it's the same director. I don't know. I'm very excited for this. I loved the giant ant playing the drums that everyone's talking about, all that stuff. It looks really good.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite moments is when Evangeline Lilly's Wasp sort of throws this salt shaker at a doorway and then manages to use the Pym particle technology to make it huge and block the door. And there's this shot that it cuts to right after that where the camera is sort of inside the salt shaker, and there's like a piece of glass that is like I guess the outside of the salt shaker where this henchman sort of runs right into it. And I just thought it was a really clever way to visualize that scene, and I'm hoping that we're going to see a lot of that kind of fun size change kind of stuff in this movie. I don't know how much I'm probably not allowed to say anything about this, so I'll just leave more about Ant-Man and the Wasp will be coming soon. I'll leave it as vague as that. And I guess that'll wrap up today's episode of the podcast, unless you guys have anything else to say about this particular trailer. Anything else that stood out to you guys? I know the drumming ant was pretty amazing. Any other highlights?
Walton Goggins.
Walton Goggins, yes. Yeah, I think we know he's playing a guy named Sonny Birch. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does in this sort of a crime-centric vibe. You know, the first movie was sort of a heist film, but it had like Luis and Michael Pena's character and those guys and the sort of the outskirts of the law. And I wonder how maybe Walton Goggins' character knows them from sort of a previous life kind of scenario. One other thing I guess I wanted to mention really quickly, you're talking about that drumming ant, which is a ridiculous image, but Brad Oman, the weekend editor of Slash Film, pointed out in our Slack channel that you can see Scott Lang's what is it called, like a homing device, his house arrest bracelet anklet thing is on that drum, or on the ant when he's drumming. So it seems like Scott was able to switch that over to this ant, and maybe that's how he's able to go off on his adventure, because in Infinity War they mention a line about how he had to take some sort of plea deal after the events of Captain America Civil War, and he went into house arrest. So just some things that you can discover and learn about that movie. And actually, Brad did a whole trailer breakdown, so I'll link to that in the show notes as well. A couple more things I actually wrote down that I wanted to mention before we completely wrap up this episode. Chris, you have put out the second entry in your 21st Century Spielberg series, right?
Yes, I have. It's up now on slashfilm.com. I'm doing this ongoing column that looks at the 21st century films of Steven Spielberg and sort of reevaluates them, because I personally think they're some of his best movies. Right now the edition up now is Volume 2. It focuses on Catch Me If You Can and The Terminal. And please, I urge all of you, go out there, read it, retweet it, get it out there, because it takes a lot of work. These are like the most detailed things I've ever written for the site. So I want people to read them.
Yes, it's very good, and I'll link to that in the show notes. And one other thing I wanted to give a quick shout out to was Joshua Meyer wrote an article for us called 12 Iconic Marvel Comics Moments That Avengers Infinity War Brings to Life. And I had to edit this piece because Jacob Hall has been out of the office for the past couple days, and it's a really, really great article. I mean, I probably would have stumbled across it on our own site anyway, but I got a chance to read it before it went live on the site, and it's up now and everybody can read it, and it's really great. It shows comic panels and explains what happened in the movie, and it shows just how much Marvel Studios was able to sort of rip directly from the page and translate onto the big screen for Avengers Infinity War. So I just want to encourage everybody to check that out. It's really a great piece. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Slash Film Daily. You can find this show on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Rate, review, subscribe, do all that stuff. You can send us your feedback, questions, comments, and concerns to peter@slashfilm.com, and make sure to leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention the email on the air. Don't forget to rate and review, like I said, on iTunes especially, because that helps us out a lot with the numbers. Tell your friends and spread the word about the podcast. Before we fully sign off, HT, where can people find more of your work online?
You can find me every day at slashfilm.com, and I'm on Twitter at HTranBuoy.
Chris?
Also slashfilm.com, and I'm on Twitter at Evangelista413.
You can find me writing at slashfilm.com as well. My name is Ben. You can find me on Twitter at Ben Pears. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow.